Welcome back from the short break. If you've just tuned in, this is your Power Station Energy 100, and this is Econochit Let's Talk Business with Mr. Daniel Steinman. We are talking about the legislative changes happening this year. 2024 is a big year for Namibia, as it is also election year. We are talking the Income Tax Act, we are talking the VAT Act, we are talking the Transfer Duty Act, as well as the Stamp Duty Act, which will be amended this year.
Yes, well, within the next week or two.
Okay, hopefully.
It's actually been pushed through Parliament to get this, to make this reality. You remember this was announced on the 28th of February. Yeah, and I've explained that, I mean, it's 5 months later. Nothing happens overnight with the government machine. It's a very big machine.
Yeah.
It turns very slowly, but it also turns very surely. So all those concessions that must make life easier for you and me announced in the budget speech, they all now are before Parliament in the form of amendment bills to the 4 acts that you mentioned. And the idea of all of them, we've just talked about the Income Tax Act and bracket creeping, to make the tax payable on a certain income, to make it more realistic, to actually bring down the amount of tax that you're paying on the same income. Why? Because your income have grown slowly over the years. So with the let's take the last one, Stamp Duty Act, for instance. Stamp duties can kill a house sale or the affordability of low-income housing for people who are, for young couples or buying their first house or whatever. If you go to a luxury house, stamp duties can easily run to a couple of 100,000. And that usually simply gets added to the loan. But I mean, if you take out a loan for 3.4 million and they add 600,000 in stamp duties, it's no big deal that the loan now becomes 3.46 million. 600,000 on 3.5 million. Doesn't make a big difference. The person who gets that loan has the income to pay for that type of loan. But if you are really hunting around for a small little house or property, condominium that you can afford, and you are a young couple and you have to pay for the children and the groceries and the car and everything else, those transfer duties can actually disqualify your application for a home loan. Because it pushes you, again, there's a bracket. It pushes you above the limit that you qualify for. And the stamp duty has to be paid from some source. So what is the proposal in the amendment bill is that the minimum threshold must be raised to 1.1 million Namibia dollar. Now that becomes realistic, because now young couples or first-time property buyers can actually scout around for much more. It gives them more leeway in the market. So because you can buy a fairly decent small house or flat for 1.1 million. You don't need to go live in the 3.5 million house. It's nice if you can eventually in your life get to that level. But I have to tell you something. One day when you live in the $3 or $4 or $5 million house, the cost to maintain that property is horrendous.
That's what I always think about.
It really kills you. So to the young people, the young couples, my advice is don't try to get to that $3 million house too quickly. Because on top of your ability to pay for it, you also have to have some additional income to keep it up. To make sure that it doesn't lose its value. But you can see from the proposed amendment to zero rate stamp duty on anything up to 1.1 million, it means in practice that if a young couple now finds a house for 1.1 million in the market and they can actually afford it, they can go ahead and they can make an offer. They can go to the bank and they can apply for it, because they have the confirmation that the stamp duty or any other additional cost will not disqualify them, will not push them above the bracket for which they qualify, or that they will be forced to go look for cheaper property. I mean, it's human. If the law or my income or my company policy allows me to go buy a house for 1.1 million and my income allows me, I want to go buy a house for 1.1 million. I don't want a house for 900,000 or for 600,000. You know, maybe I'm wrong. You must tell me what you think, Elsie, but I think most people, if you get a car allowance and you can go buy a car for $600,000, you're not going to go buy a car for 400,000. It's typical. It's part of our nature. To use the benefit to the maximum that it is allowed or that it makes provision for. So, stamp duty was a debilitating factor in the past. More so on high-level properties than on low properties or lower-priced properties. But it very often prevented people just to buy that property that they want. Because it was an issue with the bank qualifying for the loan. Now, at that very substantially increased minimum threshold, it actually opens up the property market, especially the lower spectrum, to many thousands more potential home buyers. So it's not only good for the prospective home buyers, the first-time property owners, it's also good for the economy, because suddenly you stimulate property activity at a lower level, and you get much more activity because you've brought down the cost. You've actually zero-rated the cost to make it more affordable.
And of course, property is a serious issue as well in Namibia. But unfortunately, we have come to the end of this very interesting talk. And I'm sure first, house buyers, home buyers will be intrigued by this conversation. But again, you can find us next week with some more interesting talks right here on your power station. Good things to Mr. Daniel Steinman, and thank you to our loyal listeners.